everybody. It's not quite 7 o'clock, so we can't actually start on the agenda. But I'm just going to ask my Vice Chairman to do the introduction, because I've got a bit of sore throat tonight. I don't want to speak for too long, so I'm just going to hand you over to, say, the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everybody, members, officers and members of the public. Welcome to the Woking Borough Council Planning Committee meeting today, which is the 14th of November 2018. Just make a few points before we start. We have a PA system here, so if you come forward to speak, can you press the grey button and then we can all hear you in the room, and press the grey button afterwards to switch it off. Can you all ensure that mobile phones are off or on silent? There's no fire drill planned this evening, so if the alarm goes off, it's a real fire, or maybe a real fire. These proceedings are filmed over there, and they are published on the council website. As you can see, committee members, council officers and registered speakers are normally recorded, but if you are speaking and you don't wish to be filmed, can you let us know, and probably have let us know already, I suspect. Now the planning committee around here is made up of 9 elected members, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Councillor Ross.
Councillor Angus Ross, representing Woking Without Ward.
Wayne Smith, representing Hurst.
Councillor Malcolm Richards, representing lorries in Woking Town.
Chris Barry, Vice Chairman, Evidence Ward.
Tim Holton from Hawkland in Lower Early.
John Jarvis, representing Twyford Ward.
And I'm Carl Doran, representing Bulmish and Whitegates.
Thank you. We're supported and advised by professional council officers, and if I go around the table again, ask them to introduce themselves.
My name's Carl Moyle, I'm the clerk to the committee.
My name's Neil Allen. I'm the legal advisor to the committee.
Conor Corrigan, Service Manager for the SDLs.
Judy Kelly, Values Development.
Thank you. We have planning officers who are sitting over here, several of them who are going to introduce the applications. They'll do a presentation and then we will discuss it after board members and members of the public have spoken. This is a quasi-judicial committee with formal set procedures of conduct. Firstly, the planning officer will present each application. Then I, or the chairman, if he's up to it, will call in turn only those who pre-registered to speak. Please come forward to the table. As I said, the microphone is controlled by the grey button on the base. The time limit of 3 minutes. 2 minutes. For each category of speaker will be strictly enforced, so please ensure you get your key points across within your allotted time. Members of the committee are interested in the quality of what you have to say and not the quantity. I have to emphasise that only those who pre-register to speak may speak. No others, including town or parish councillors, agents, applicants, objectors or supporters, are permitted to address the committee, ask questions or interrupt the meeting. Following the planning officer's presentation and the comments of registered speakers, the planning committee members will consider, question and seek clarification for the application and hopefully reach a decision which may or may not agree with the planning officer's recommendation. And finally, a reminder that the local planning authority's role is to determine any valid planning application using local and national planning policy. Our role is not to suggest alterations to schemes, whether they're a good idea or needed, whether they're too costly or whether there are alternative uses. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to the chairman.
Yes, thank you very much for doing that. I don't think I would have managed it to the end. Right, first item on the agenda, item 45 is apologies. Are there any apologies?
Apologies submitted from councillors Shosha Debay and Bill Soincha.
Thank you very much. Right, minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any amendments to that or corrections? No?
Can I just make the point, that's not something I'm going to go against confirming these for a minute, but there's many references to different members in the minutes, and it says a member said this or a member questioned that. And in other places it has the actual name of the member. So I thought it'd be nice in future if there was consistency with that, either we name everyone or everyone becomes our member. So because it's going to the situation that makes us, but I'm pointing out that some members said something but in another bit of minutes it kind of implies that a particular member said something and it might be important in the future for people referring back to these minutes. It's just sort of mentioned, it's not something I want to vote against the minutes right now.
Yeah, so from what you said, it's not something that I would disagree with. I don't know, as the person who actually sort of takes the minutes, whether you would like to pass some comment.
Generally, that's what we do. I didn't actually do the minutes for the last committee, but in general, we do state the name of the member who made the particular point. When there's several members that make a similar point, I do tend to group it saying members of the committee. But when it's a specific point raised by a councillor, I personally do put the points in the minutes.
Any other comments? Okay, if give a show of hands then for approval of the minutes. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Right, declarations of interest. Does anyone need to declare an interest? Chris?
Thank you. With reference to 53, which is 8 Medway Close, Wokingham, I listed this application, which means that I asked that if it comes to the planning committee, if the officer recommendation was for approval, which it was. I have not determined how I'm going to vote on this. I merely brought it to the committee as I felt it would be advisable for other members just to present their views so that we can jointly come to a decision. Thank you.
Anybody else need to declare an interest? Okay, thank you. Right, are there any applications to be deferred or withdrawn? Right, so the agenda is as is. The first application then is on page 13. It's agenda item 49, and that's the British Museum south of Cutbush Lane, Sheffield. It's a hybrid application, so it's a full planning application for 16,000 research and storage facility and 80 parking spaces and landscaping. And it's an outline application for a 15,000 square metre facility. And the third part is the demolition of 2 residential buildings. It's before the committee tonight. It's a major application, and I shall now hand over to the case officer, Christopher Allen.
Thank you, Chair. In respect to the background of the application, just to put some more meat in the bones of the description, the primary purpose of the site will be for storage of artefacts of the British Museum. For an asset review by the government, the museum is required to relocate its current activities and archive sites in central London by 2023. The sites to the south of Churchwood, the sites to the south of Cutbush Lane are selected as it has excellent links to university and Reading Archaeology Department together with to London, Heathrow and London. Moving on to the slides. The first few slides will be looking at the context of the site and access. The application site is shown outlined in red. The site is located to the north of Cutbush Lane, adjacent to the Science Park. The existing land use of the site is agricultural, and the 2 dwellings are located to the application site, which will be demolished to make way for the facility. And the land slopes gently broadly from the northwest to the southeast. This slide shows the site in context of the South M4 SDL. Whilst it's located adjacent to the SDL boundary, it is closely related to the Science Park, which has outlined planning consent for the entire allocated site. In addition, the site is close to the Eastern Relief Road. The applicants worked with officers to access the site through the Science Park. This approach ensures that no higher dimensions are required on the Eastern Relief Road. The slide to the left shows a close-up version of the access strategy together with the consented phase 2 of the Science Park. As can be seen, both sites are closely related. The access strategy means that the facility will be located in a good position with easy links to the M4, London and London Heathrow. A significant amount of the collection is air freighted around the world to various exhibitions. The intensity of the use of the site will be low post-construction. Given the nature of the activity, staff and HGV movements will be low. The next 2 slides look at further merits of the proposal, and it needs to be acknowledged that the site is outside the SDL and within countryside. In addition, it's outside the development limits as identified by policy of the Shinfield Parish Plan. There are, however, several mitigating factors which result in the recommendation for approval. These are: Policy 1 of the Parish Plan allows for supporting proposals outside development limits where the benefits of the proposal outweigh the adverse impacts. In this case, the parish accepts the development in this location, which is set out in the reports. In addition, there are significant public benefits which are highlighted on the slide, and these are summarised as public access to a unique collection by prior appointment, opportunities for organised visits for members of the public and local community to see the collection and to talk to museum staff, enhanced local school programmes providing behind-the-scenes access to curriculum-related activities, form partnership with local museums, heritage and community organisations, develop links with local interest groups who will have access to the museum study facilities, and work in partnership with the university to share the collection of knowledge to wider audiences. In addition to the commitment for working with the community, which is secured by condition, the proposal will bring several wider benefits, and these are the location of sites considered sustainable in relation to its relationship to the science park for ease of access. Biodiversity enhancements will be delivered through landscaping. An ambitious approach for environmental sustainability will be with a commitment to a BREEAM outstanding. Employment created through construction and post-occupation of the facility. Given these considerations, and since an end user is identified which will be secured through a Section 106 agreement, it is considered that any harm to planning policy is outweighed by the proposal. Moving on to the detailed design now for the final few slides. This slide shows the layout of the building. The full element is shown outlined in red for phase 1. Phase 2 would link onto the this phase 1 facility. This is shown outlined in purple. A significant amount of work has been put into future-proofing the site for further expansion. Phase 2 is likely to be required as the collection grows. Car parking is shown outlined in blue, which includes two coach bays. Much of the parking would be at the front of the site, although a smaller car parking area is adjacent to a service yard at the rear of the phase 1 building, as shown in yellow. Looking at the floor plan of the building now, this is the phase 1 building, and the eastern wing, as outlined in red, would host a facility for visiting members of the public. In addition, this element would have offices to support the function of the building. The main entrance is located adjacent to the main car park. The remaining part of the building, as shown outlined in purple, will house a collection, and these will be linked to the other parts of the building through glazed canopies. Outside the building, there is significant landscaping and sustainable drainage infrastructure for surface water attenuation. Both the landscape officer and flood risk officer support the approach. This slide shows the front and rear elevation of the building. As shown, the facility incorporates 3 pitch roofs which are linked by the canopies, which helps keep the overall height of the structure down. The overall height of the structure is 11.5 metres, which reduces to 6 metres at the eaves. These are side elevations for phase 1. The bulk of the building will be mitigated by a 15-metre buffer zone from each side of the site, from the side boundary to the side elevations. The final few slides show some perspective shots of the facility. This is the entrance of the building as taken from the car park to the front of the site. This part of the structure has a glazed frontage to mark the main entrance of the building. In addition, the building line here is staggered at the front, which helps to break up the massing of the 3 wings of the building. This slide is taken from opposite the site, looking towards the entrance. A significant amount of design work has been put into the form of the building, which appears agricultural in appearance. This helps allow the structure to blend in with the landscape. In addition, a lot of effort has been put into the appearance of the facility, such as the cladding, which also helps reduce the visual impact on the landscape. This slide shows a view from within the building, which overlooks the internal courtyard. The area of building, this area of building will host the visiting members of the public. Moving on to the recommendation, it's a 3-tiered recommendation, but it's approved subject to the completion of Section 106 agreement as set out in the report and members update. The conditions set out in the report and the members update. And should a Section 106 not be agreed within 6 months, it's proposed to delegate to the Head of Development Management to refuse the application for failing to secure highway mitigation, off-site works, DROs and off-site landscaping, and the reasons as set out in the report. Moving on to members' updates. Page 15, adding the plans as listed. For the recommendation, it's on page 15 again. It's recommended the text in the report is replaced with the text as set out in the members' update. Page 16, replace condition 6 as it is set out below. Page 16, replace the text within condition 16 as set out below. On page 18, update condition 14 to the prompt text added as set out below, which is in respect to existing drainage features. On page 20, amend the time frame for the review of community engagement. This is to shorten the period for review from 5 to 2 years, and also have a mechanism in there for when the phase 2 application comes in. Page 21, add a condition for Thames Water. Page 22, add the following 4 informatives to the list. And just a couple of clarifications to report for the alternative recommendation for reviews on page 22 and 23. Insert that. On page 22, add numbers for the reasons for refusals. On page 22 again, add policy 1 the Shinfield neighbourhood plan to reason 1 being added up. On page 23, add the text Cutbush Lane and suitable highways mitigation for the construction occupation phase to reason 2 when numbered up. On page 24, add the text of the development and would fail to secure ecological mitigation. Add policy 6 and 7 the Shinfield neighbourhood parish plan, policy CP7 the water strategy, and TV25 the managing development delivery plan. Page 39, this just remove the 56% figure within there and replace it with green outstanding. Page 49, the ecological officer has assessed the application and is satisfied with the information provided. And on page 50, again, the archaeological officer has assessed the application and is satisfied with the information that's been provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we only have it's a pair of speakers. We've got Nick Patterson, Neil, the agent, and Jonathan Williams, the applicant. You have 3 minutes between you. Do you want to know when you've had like a minute and a half, or just go through to the 3 minutes?
I'll be on just for a minute and a half and then pass it.
Okay. Just give us a moment while we just reset the clock. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Williams. I'm Deputy Director at the British Museum. Thanks for the opportunity to say a few words about the British Museum Archaeological Research Collection, the ARC. The ARC is a new partnership with the University of Reading to provide first-class storage and public access to the museum's world-renowned archaeological research collections from across the globe. The museum needs to move out of an existing storage facility in London by early 2023. The ARC is therefore essential to the museum's core purpose, which is to put its collection to work for public benefit. The ARC will open up new opportunities for world-leading research, which will reshape our understanding of human history. Why Shinfield? The museum looked countrywide, and we found that our ideal partner was the University of Reading, whose archaeology and humanities departments are world-beating. The proximity of the site to the university and the Thames Valley Science Park make Shinfield and Wokingham Borough the perfect location for this facility. The ARC will, of course, become a world-famous research centre, but it will also be firmly rooted in the borough. Community engagement is at the heart of what we do, as we seek to engage diverse audiences wherever we work. The ARC will give individuals, local schools, community and special interest groups access by appointment to the fascinating objects in the collection and the wonderful stories that they tell. We know how excited many members of the local community are about the proposal, and we're looking forward to working with our friends and colleagues within the borough to develop a rich and sustainable programme of community engagement. Thank you.
Good evening, members. Nick Patterson, Neil, Planning Director of Barton Wilmore. As your officer's presentation sets out, this proposal will bring substantial benefits. First, the opportunity to bring the British Museum to the borough, realising economic and cultural opportunities of this nationally important and globally significant collection. Second, ensuring the museum continues to have significant and wide-reaching benefits, both nationally and internationally, in the research and collection of historical artefacts. This facility is essential in providing for the conservation and storage of its collection. Third, the proposal will support the synergy between the museum and the University of Reading by providing opportunities for academics and students to view the collection and to work alongside researchers from the museum. Fourth, the unique collection will be accessible, as you've heard, by appointment to university students, academics, members of the local community and the general public. Engagement with the community is an important aspect of the museum's philosophy. In the long term, our vision is for working with schools to build a strong connection and support network with the museum, which we will hope will have a very positive impact on learning, skills development and confidence of children in the borough. So finally, the proposal will lie adjacent to the Thames Valley Science Park and will take its access, as you've heard, through the park. That presents an opportunity to develop a research and innovation hub which will further support cultural diversity and sustainable growth in the borough. So we fully endorse and support your officer's recommendation to approve this unique proposal which supports the council's vision in raising the borough's cultural and economic profile. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, members who would like to ask the first question? No?
Thanks, Chair. Could I have a bit of an explanation around the TRO and also what the emergency link is in the science park? I didn't quite understand around that really what was going on. It talks about Cutbush Lane being closed. Is that to all traffic, or is that just vehicular traffic in certain areas, etc.?
So the TRO, traffic regulation order, would be for works to Cutbush Lane, which were shown under a previous application, but also included within the transport assessment for this application. So the access strategy for the British Museum is through the Science Park area to Cutbush Lane and then into the site via a new access. The Science Park already has an emergency access onto Cutbush Lane. It's a one-way emergency access that's bollarded off. That would be tweaked a little bit, but the majority of the rest of the emergency access within the Science Park would be widened to allow two-way traffic, and it would sweep out, curve out as it hit Cutbush Lane to provide the access to the site. So the idea is to encourage all traffic to go through the Science Park rather than down Cutbush Lane and onto the Eastern Relief Road. The scheme that's being proposed does show the Cutbush Lane being closed off to through traffic, vehicular traffic, between the existing emergency access to the Science Park and the point where the new revised road would come out from the Science Park onto Cutbush Lane. Cyclists would still be able to go through, obviously, the national cyclists.
And Angus?
It's much on the same point, actually. I know the area very well. I'm still unclear where it is planned to stop up Cutbush Lane. I presume it's between this site and Shinfield Manor, which is down towards the Eastern Relief Road.
I guess I can probably show you. It's just, the road will sweep in here, so it comes into this point. The road will come in. So it sweeps around because the plan, but we've got condition on to cover the details of that.
So that's where it's been stopped up?
But yeah, we stopped it along that bit of Cutbush Lane.
But
Stop the wrong word, really.
Well,
it's
that's the other point. It is a public right of way, isn't it, for pedestrians and cyclists, and that won't be affected.
That'll be retained, yeah.
Okay.
The idea is to stop vehicles using...
Sure. I just want to be clear where it was and that it allowed other traffic.
Yeah.
Malcolm?
Thank you. It says that there won't be many employees in the building. It's not a high employment area, but there will be HGV traffic, presumably delivering equipment there. Is that anticipated certainly during the population of the museum overflow? Will it be quite heavy HGV, is it? How often would...
It's not really, because of the type of use it is, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, because of the type of use, obviously there's a movement of the artefacts to the site, but that's probably only going to be a couple of vehicles a week. Is it 5 a week? So 5 a week, so it's not very many. It's actually quite light. Just because of more so the problem of getting out of London and getting them out of the current storage facilities too there. So it will never generate a huge amount of traffic because of the type of facility it is. It will have the odd coach load of people coming to it, obviously, and schools and things like that. But yeah, in terms of traffic generation, it'll be very low.
Yeah, good points. It says there's the usual 3-year start period for the first bit, but unusually then 20 years open expansion for the remaining. Does that mean that as they increase over that 20 years? It'll be a bit more built each time as they need it, or is it a sort of likely to be one big chunk?
It's 2 phases. So you get the first phase that accommodates all the existing artefacts,
Yeah.
and then in the future, if it expands enough, which obviously the British Museum will collect enough, I suspect, then it has the ability to build a second phase. And the reason it's got that, the phase 1 and phase 2, it's to safeguard that use. So they don't want to be in a position where they come in, they get permission, and then suddenly they can't get permission for the second phase when they need it, and they have to relocate. So that's the reason for that.
But until that second expansion bit, if and when it occurs, it'll be all fairly attractively landscaped in the meantime. It's not going to look like an open.
Yeah, so there's landscaping to go around it to screen it off from the rest of the environment. Yeah,
Okay. And the final question is, it says it'll be available to the public, well, schools, universities and so on, which is excellent. For the public, it's not going to be sort of open on a regular basis. It's just now and then, like once a month, there'll be a couple of days on the weekend or something.
It's by appointment only, so you have the ability to go, but yeah, it's not like a museum that you would attend. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Chris?
I'd just like to say that I think it's a tremendous asset and a really huge boon to the borough and people who live in it, and of course particularly children, and help them a great deal with their studies, history and archaeology.
Anybody else? Could we just have some clarification that this application, if we do approve it, it is specific for the British Museum and not another company could sort of take on the application?
Yes, Chair. The special circumstances warranting the scheme legally is acceptable in planning terms, so we will be tying that down for the Section 56 agreement to the British Museum for their use solely.
Wayne?
I agree with Chris. I mean, it will be a great asset. My only concern is that I know it's only 80 parking spaces, but how have we factored in the science park plus this, plus all the housing that's going in this area? We know when we're out and about, Shinfield is just a blight of traffic, and it's always congested at the Black Boy roundabout. The Eastern Relief Road isn't so much congested at the moment because I think there's a lot more people either don't use it or find it. Don't know. But it's certainly backed right the way back to the Black Boy roundabout from Junction 11. And I'm now being told that Junction 11 is at capacity, the A33 is at capacity. So how, I know it's only 80 spaces, so let's say 80 cars, but how does this impact our existing problem of those two roundabouts and junctions?
So in terms of the vehicle impact of the site, we're looking at about 41 vehicles in the car, which is quite, it's not considered to be significant across the network in terms of comparing daily variations of traffic and so on. And I suppose the other thing to say is that not all the infrastructure is in yet. Appreciate there are congestion issues at Decar, but there's still a whole realm from highway infrastructure projects to come up, which will accommodate some of that demand.
Well, you know what my next question is. So, on the timeline, when is that infrastructure? Because people of this borough are constantly asking us, infrastructure first, housing and developments next. So, when is the infrastructure going to come? Is it going to come in time for when this is open?
The infrastructure is planned to come by 2021. Right. So that's the 10 major highway schemes.
Any other questions, members, before we start?
Right, within the question, just a comment I just want to make. I kind of agree with what Chris was saying. It is prestigious, and it's the fact that it is that, and it's such a benefit to the borough and the area that it's a good thing. But we just, I just wanted to point out that this is not compliant with Core Policy 11, although it does, as it says, meets the test of sustainable development. And I just wanted to make that comment that we are kind of in a balance here. This is not, oh, this is brilliant, let's do it. We need to kind of, bear that in mind.
As I say, thank you for that point, Carl. I had similar concerns, and you will notice on the conditions that we're actually reviewing how the community involvement is. rather than just checking it out every 5 years, it's been reduced down, it's every 2, I know it's every 2 years now. And it's going to be looked at again before phase 2 can be implemented, before reserve matters. So I've already taken that on board. Members, let's come to the vote then if there's no other questions. Set out for approval on page 15 with numerous conditions, and then in the members' update, I don't recall from many a year seeing quite as many additions to those conditions. I don't propose to read them all out. I take it that you've all read them and digested them thoroughly. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show. And that is unanimous, that's approved. Thank you, members. If those people are not staying for the rest of the evening, could sort of leave quickly because we've got. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the next application then, which is agenda item 50 on page 727. It's the Hogwood Farm at Shearlands Road. It's a reserve matters application for 178 dwellings. Details of access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale to be determined. It's before the committee tonight for its major application, and the case officer is Nathan Chancellor. I shall hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The application at hand this evening is a reserve matters application pursuant to Outline Planning Commission 181194. The reserve matters comprise details of 178 dwellings with access from Shearlands Road and the proposed 9 Mile Road extension south. Associated internal access roads, parking, landscaping, green space, footpaths, and sustainable urban drainage. Members of the committee will already be familiar with Harbourfield SDL. Both halves of the development, Harbourfield Garrison to the north and Hogwood Farm to the south, benefit from outline planning permissions totaling some 3,500 dwellings. And this has established the principle of development across the entire SDL. Construction within the northern half, that's the Garrison site, is now well underway. The current application relates to the southern half of the SDL, that's land at Hogwood Farm, shown on this slide here. And the application itself, that's the reserve matters, are for the first phase of the development, shown red on this plan here. And as you can see, it's bounded by the Garrison site to the north, and Byway 18, Shearlands Road to the west, and the future 9 Mile Road extension south to the east. The site is just under 7 hectares, and the application seeks approval for 178 dwellings as mentioned, and also for 1.6 hectares of open space. There are a mixture of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom homes across the site, as well as 1 and 2 bedroom flats. 35% of the dwellings, that's 62 units in total, will be affordable homes, and all of the developers' affordable housing obligations are met on site in this particular instance. So in terms of the design, the site is broken down into 3 character areas where subtle variations in style and block form allow for a transition from the surrounding countryside to the more central parts of the development fronting onto the future 9 Mile Road extension, shown here to the east. Building heights are up to 3 stories along the eastern boundary and the key focal points within the site, reducing to 2 stories adjacent to Shearlands Road and Byway 18. Building heights are in accordance with the parameters approved at outline stage. The development is well separated from existing homes and buildings and will not have a negative impact on residential amenity. The internal layout is considered to be high quality design, and the built form, in conjunction with the landscaping scheme which accompanies the application, is an appropriate response to the site context. Pedestrian routes to the north, that would be to access bus services, Bowhunt School and the Future District Centre, are provided by two routes. Firstly, a western link via Shearlands Road, and also an eastern route via a footway that runs inside the northeastern boundary. Vehicular access to the site is from Shearlands Road, and also from the future 9 Mile Road extension on the east. Initially, this would be from Shearlands Road only, since the 9 Mile Road extension hasn't been built yet, and an eastern connection to the 9 Mile Road would come later. Under the Community Infrastructure Levy, the Council has assumed responsibility for delivering the southern section of this 9 Mile Road extension, and it's anticipated that the road will be complete by 2020 or 2021. Pedestrian access to the Sang, that forms part of the outline planning permission to the south of the reserved matters, will also be provided by first occupation. In terms of parking, the development provides 396 parking spaces in total, not including garages. This corresponds to an average of 2.22 spaces per dwelling, and exceeds the minimum threshold recommended by policy. Officers have worked closely with the applicant to ensure that spaces are well distributed across the site. A number of changes have been made to improve the parking layout since the application was first submitted. Cycle parking and storage is also provided in accordance with standards. In terms of flooding and drainage, the outline permission is supported by a flood risk assessment, which demonstrates that the site can be developed without risk to residential areas and without increasing flood risk off-site. Runoff can be attenuated on-site via SUDs, with storage basins sited within the Sang to the south. The Reserve Matters application has been assessed by the drainage officer and is consistent with the scheme approved at outline stage. So in conclusion, the development is considered to comply with the Council's policies and standards, and it's therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions specified in the committee report and members' updates.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one registered speaker then, which is Ruth Hopkins on behalf of Legal and General Homes, the applicant. Welcome.
Hello, I am Ruth Hopkins. I'm the Land and Planning Director at Legal and General Homes. I wanted really to take this opportunity to thank officers for the professional manner in which they have dealt with this application, and they've ensured that the scheme meets the high standards expected to be delivered within Wokingham. I also wanted to thank Finch Hampstead Parish Council for their time early in the application process to consider the detailed design of the houses, and their comments were fully taken on board and amendments were made to the scheme. Thank you also to residents and members who attended all public consultation events and who continue to maintain an interest in the design of the scheme. This area of land has been allocated since 2010. It received outline plan permission in January 2017, at which point Legal and General Homes were identified as the preferred developer by the landowner. It will involve Legal and General Homes being on site for at least 10 years, and we are excited to commence the development of Hogwood Farm, and we'll be seeking through every phase of development a high quality scheme that we can all be proud of. We hope that you agree that this first phase Reserve Matters application is of high quality and meets the Wokingham's high standards by approving this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, members who would like to start? Any questions from members? Malcolm.
Just a couple of quick questions. Chris will recognise my first one. There's two entrances there, one on the east and one on the south. Are all the internal roads on that side the same width, or do they get narrower on the internal roads?
They're not all the same width, no. I believe the sort of main routes through the site would be 5.5 metres, whereas the more towards the extremes on the northwestern part of the site, that would be narrower than 5.5 metres.
And really 5 rather than 5.5, do you say?
Maybe 4.7, but Judy might be well placed to answer that one.
Yeah, I believe it's 5.5. There might be a few that are 6 metres, but in the main, except for the small cul-de-sacs that we've mentioned.
Okay. So there's plenty of room inside for all the vehicles to get around, and big lorries or whatever to be able to turn around and come out without
That's right,
an
and all
issue.
the states being tracked for the Wilkinson Max electric vehicle.
Okay, thank you. And the second question was the charging points. Obviously, you've got something like 2 spaces per place for parking off street, which is fine. But if you need charging points, they're not going to be out along the road, narrow roads internally. Are they going to be sort of at some convenient location that takes them off the road and doesn't block any aspect at all?
Are you referring to electric vehicle charging?
Electrical charging, yeah, electrical vehicle. It won't be at every house, will it?
I don't believe it's been considered exactly where the electric charging points would be, but we have recommended a condition that would ensure an electric vehicle charging strategy would be submitted as part of the development, which will require the developer to consider where these charging points should go, but more importantly, how how it's all wired in, so that it's not an afterthought, it's built into the development from the word go. It's particularly important for the flats in the courtyard areas there, but it doesn't apply across the site.
So, in car park areas or courtyard areas then, if you have the charging in there, the points where you sit to get charged are not counted as part of the overall parking spaces, I imagine, are they? Because otherwise, what a lot of people do is they go to a parking bay that's got charging, then they leave it in all day, under the pretence of charge, that removes a parking space.
It's not really been looked at in detail yet. That's why the planning commission is there to look at the strategy. On the subject of car parking, the site is over-providing compared with parking standards. So it meets our parking standards, plus there's about 14 additional spaces provided across the site, which obviously gives them a little bit of flexibility in the future for electric charging.
You're going to have a strategy for it, which would be
Yes,
agreed.
we'll cover that condition, yeah.
I'm not sure whether you indicated. So you've got Carl, then I've got Angus, and then I've got John.
Thanks. Yes, I just want to make a quick comment, really. Probably not quick, no. Everybody knows on the committee that my big bugbear is affordable housing. And on this one, I'm really delighted to see that we've asked for 35%, and that's what we've got. Actual housing as opposed to community sums. So I think that's really good. And also the spread of tenures of that housing is good as well, and fits what we need. So I'm very happy with that. One other thing I was going to say, gardens. There's something about some of the gardens, in 6 cases, a 10-metre garden, which is below the minimum threshold. Obviously that's something to take in balance, but it says here that on large development sites, it's not acknowledged that not all properties are likely to meet all minimum standards. So, is that true? I mean, I've only been on the committee today, so is that generally true? I don't think I've seen one yet since I
must say it is true, but I'll let the case officer respond.
Yeah, I think that fair point to raise. It is 6 units, so it's only a small minority of the dwellings across the site. Of those 6, they're only short by 1 metre, so they get a 10-metre garden instead of an 11-metre garden. But as you say, it is a balancing exercise, so we've considered whether it would have been possible to jig things around in order to provide a larger garden, but that would have compromised on parking spaces, on the need to provide utility corridors, and also highway widths as well. So, yeah.
I'm going to just say there's another point that we raised, because we did discuss it on Monday, all the gardens about having access from the rear, so that sometimes takes up some of the space as well.
That's That's right, and in fact, I mean, I have a few slides to show this. You can see here, for example, on the left-hand side, the access to the rear is actually what's causing the garden to be less than 11 metres. Without that access, it would have been 11 metres.
Thank you. Angus.
Thank you, Chairman. One quick comment and 3 questions. When did we last see 3 parish councils make no comment? On the drainage, you said about the swales to the south towards the Sang, but on our plan, the first plan we have, shows underground suds to the north of the site. Firstly, is that associated with this development? And secondly, if it is, I have a horror about management of these things. That's the first question. The second is there a loss of any significant trees existing on the site? I believe not, but just for confirmation. And the third comes back to the point about electric cars and charging points. My understanding is that if an existing close of houses all suddenly had an electric car, the fuse would blow about halfway through that exercise. So as well as providing for the houses, will the power supplies be upped to be able to cope with this should we have a large number of electric cars?
So yes, you are right to point out the underground sites. It's a combination really. So there is storage across the site, but a lot of it does drain down to basins within the Sang. In terms of the particular design specification, it has been reviewed thoroughly by the drainage officer, who's satisfied that the drainage is effective and provides what the site needs. On your point about trees, there are some trees being lost across the site. So certainly there are some on the southern boundary which are being lost. But there are also a large number of trees being planted as part of the development. And along the western boundary to Shearlands Road, that hedgerow will be considerably beefed up so that it provides a better landscape feature. On the charging strategy, your question was about whether the electricity infrastructure can take it. Well, there is a condition that we've recommended, I referred to it before, to look at the charging strategy, and I would expect that this would cover sort of questions. It gets the developer to think about would the infrastructure cope, so that these sorts of things are thought about in advance. So wherever possible, they can be addressed at the right time.
Could I just come back on, firstly, just on that last point, obviously far better it's done now rather than halfway through the development or much later on. But just going back to the suds again, will they, both the underground and the swales, management come back to this council, or will it be off-site management?
Yeah, so on the suds, so one of the things about suds is they're very land hungry, because they're open swales, things like that. So there's a balance by developers to be had in terms of how they deal with the drainage, and that's why a lot of big sites you get tanks or underground basically crate, as they call them. We will not accept, as an authority, underground crates going into the public system, so it will be kept in a private system, so we won't take that on.
Owners beware.
Yeah. Can I go back to the charging points for electric vehicles? I understand that you're looking at getting an ability for every property or every parking space to have an ability to charge an electric vehicle, which I understand it's government policy by 2036 to have all electric vehicles and no diesel or petrol vehicles. The only problem I find is that The local Central Electricity Generating Board strategy is that they do not have any strategy for providing power to charge electric vehicles at all. Therefore, where will the supply come from? Because the Electricity Board have no current plans to provide enough power to charge electric vehicles on sites.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. So if everybody plugged in their electric car in the whole country would shut down. And we don't have enough power stations in the country. And actually we don't have a policy for that at the moment. That's emerging. We've got high-risk policies that sits within, or guidance that sits within. So and we're not naive enough to think in 30 years time everybody's going to have electric cars, because there could be something else on. So we can't impose upon all developers you have to have 100% electric charging, because it's not reasonable at this stage. So what we do is we have the strategy that looks at national guidance, national standards, and it's developed with the developers about that. So we have to figure out the loading on the network, it's called. So that conversation has to be had as part of the strategy. But yes, the electric networks can't cope with fully charged. Everybody's charged. So if we said everybody has electric car, as Angus was saying, everybody plugs it in, your kettle doesn't come on. So it's more of a national issue than a local issue. But what we do is, in part of ours, is to try and provide some electric vehicles as part of our developments going forward. Yes, sir.
So the electric vehicle charging condition is a prior to commencement condition. So it means that we need to get these details sorted, including the electricity supply for them before they can sort of start on site, so that they can build in that infrastructure.
I'll come back on that, because basically what you're saying is that the government have got a rule that they want to bring electric vehicles in, but we're leaving houses without the ability to charge an electric vehicle in the future.
No, they all, sorry.
They won't all have the ability if you're not asking for everyone to have the ability.
You can fit them to a house, so you can retrofit them to houses. So any house that has electricity, you can put an electric charging point in. The key is a lot of the newer ones are meant to be fast charging ones, so they're about 2 hours, but they have a huge load on the network, and the network can't cope. So anybody could buy an electric car and plug it into the garage, and it would work. It's not a very difficult thing to achieve. So every house can do that, and every garage can do that. But as part of our strategy, we're looking at specific. So it's probably more important where flats are involved, because they don't have their own garage, they don't have their own electricity supply. So you would have in the parking area, you would have an electric charging point or two, like you have at the back here, a couple of charging points. So that's what the strategy is meant to do.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you now, because we do need to stick to the application. We're drifting onto sort of national policy here. So are there any more questions, clarifications on this application? No? Okay. Right, well, it's recommended for approval subject to the conditions which are set out starting on page 78. And see there's in the members update there are a number of changes as well to the conditions. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show. And that is unanimous. Thank you, members. That application is passed. Right, we move on to agenda item 51 then, which is on page 115, Arborfield Garrison. It's another reserved matters application. It's for Parcel M, the erection of 37 dwellings, access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. That's what we're considering. It's before the committee today as it's a major application, and Alex Rhodes is the case officer who I'm handing over to. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you, Chair. I'm presenting the application 181982, which is for the proposed reserved matters application for 37 dwellings at the Arborfield Garrison. The applicant is Millgate Homes. The proposal relates to land east of Princess Marina Drive and is located within the Arborfield Garrison Strategic Development Location, SDL for short. The proposal is the 9th phase of development on the site. The outline planning consent for the site was approved in April 2015, and this established the principal development as well as the development parameters. A further bit of background, this is the map, we saw this earlier, this is the map of the Arborfield SDL in its entirety, with some of the key roads labelled on. We heard earlier regarding the southern section of Arbor Fields. However, in this case, we're dealing with the northern part, so the old garrison. This is the site plan for the outline, with the previous 8 phases highlighted. The first phase being Parcel O1 and the most recent being Parcel C2, which was at committee last month. Parcel M is located within a very central area and is immediately adjacent to the existing residential area on Toke Crescent. So this is an aerial shot with the site highlighted in red. As you can see, the site currently consists of old derelict MOD buildings and is accessed off Princess Mina Drive. A little bit more context for the site as well. The areas shown in yellow are residential areas that either have permission or are allocated for housing under the outline. The area highlighted to the south of the application is the Arbor Fields Infirmary Stables, which are a Schedule Asian monument, but I'll touch on that a bit later. So, at outline, the parcel was subject to various parameters. These include things like land use, story height, and density. The parcel is designated for residential use and has a median density of 33 dwellings per hectare. The proposal is compliant with these parameters and is accessed on Princess Mina Drive as per the outline. Moving on to the site layout. As you can see, the site is laid out to include two accesses and has units that front onto Princess Mina Drive. The site mainly consists of detached or semi-detached properties, with an apartment block being located in the southwest corner. In terms of the layout, the proposal is considered acceptable and compliant with WBC policies. The application proposes a traditional style of development that resembles architecture found in the surrounding area. These units complement the existing dwellings as well as the previously approved dwellings on the wider site. It's worth noting that during the application process, comments were received from the parish councils regarding the design of the first submission. Following these proposals, this has been amended by the applicant and now resembles a much better design that the parish has raised no objection to. I touched on it earlier, but in terms of the stables, these are located to the south of the property, of the parcel, sorry. These are a Schedule Asian monument and are located within the central linear part of the SDL. Again, through amended plans, we have secured a significant amount of planting along the southern boundary that will protect views and the identity of the stables. This is, of course, again, secured by condition. So moving on to access and movement, the site has 2 accesses onto Princess Mina Drive, which connects into the wider network as a primary street. These are, there is a condition proposed to secure a set of bus stops within this specific area for quick access to public transport for new and existing residents. The parking on site is compliant with WBC standards. The application proposes a total of 97 spaces for 37 units within the site. These include 13 visitor spaces, again, which are compliant with the standard. Finally, with regard to policy standards, the policy is in accordance with WBC. The proposals are in accordance with WBC policies, particularly in terms of gardens, sidings and parking, and site-specific issues such as drainage and construction access are dealt with under separate conditions which are on the outline. So the recommendation is that the proposal is approved subject to the conditions within the report and members' update. So just to quickly go through the members' update, this is page 13 of the pack that was given to you. There is a revised comment from Finchancel Parish Council which was received on the 9th that reads no objection, and there are 2 alterations to the conditions. So one of them is just the insertion of plan numbers and the other being a slight rewording of the public transport condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have one person registered to speak, which is Eleanor King, the agent. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
The application before you tonight is the 9th residential reserve matters application within Arthurfield Green, but the first by Millgate Homes. Millgate Homes is part of the Countryside Group, a major PLC house builder, and within Millgate there's a passionate desire for individuality and hand-built craftsmanship. They're looking to provide a high-quality, traditionally designed scheme within this major development. We fully support the information contained within the officer's report and the presentation that's been done tonight, and therefore we have nothing further to add. We really hope that members will support this proposal to deliver the next phase of the SCF. Thank you.
Thank you much. Keep that nice and short. Before I open it up to members, the Barking Parish Council have asked me to put a question which you had actually answered in your presentation tonight, but they have asked me to put the question, so I'll just say it's on film. Barking Parish Council would like confirmation that checks have been made to ensure that the large houses on elevation B are not visible when looking up to the stables from the village green, as this will spoil the view of the ancient monuments.
Yes, so through amended plans we have secured this. We'd also look for planting within the linear park when that comes forward as well, so you essentially get a double planting button.
Thank you. Members, who would like to start? Done?
Okay, not surprised to hear a comment on affordable housing. Yeah, just a quick comment really. I recognise that it's got up to 35% of the community sum, so yeah, it's okay in legislative terms, I suppose. Yeah, compared to the last one, just wish it could have been a bit better. The tenure is the thing I'm most bothered about. I mean, I prefer the houses rather than cash, full stop really. But it's the tenure, the fact that there's 30 houses and 7 apartments, I think it was. And 7 apartments, I think, before. And there's no 3-bedroom apartments or houses available as affordable either. So I think we could do better. But yeah, it's about it.
Anyone else? Angus?
I think this is the third developer within the MOD part of SDL. Are we assured that each of the different styles will fit together as an entity?
So at outline stage there was a design and access statement that covers the whole site. Within that design and access statement are specific character areas. Whenever a parcel comes forward within that character area, it needs to make sure that the design is compliant with was originally stated, or at least what was originally stipulated. In this case and in all the other cases, the developer submits a design brief before they submit a reserve matters application, and that essentially they have to be compliant with that as well. And that design brief links back to the design and access statement, so there should be a site-wide design, or at least a thread going through it, which all applications are compliant to.
Just worried by your use of the word should.
That are compliant.
Angus, just add to that, so obviously there's consideration goes in across the site in terms of what everything looks like. At the same time, we want a little bit of variety in the house designs and house styles, because you don't want to, I suppose for want of a better word, those 80s developments that are massive developments that all look the same. So the variety in the different developments helps us overcome that, but it does sit within design, as Alex was saying.
I have Malcolm, then I have Wayne.
It's a question that we discussed on the previous one. Will there be charging points? Is there going to be a strategy for charging points for this area with those?
On this one, there's not a specific condition on charging points, I don't think. No, it's basically too small for this one. As I say, normally what we want to do is on the larger parcels, especially when you get blocks of flats in, to have that strategy in place.
Okay, but if there's about 37 houses, they don't all have to have individual stuff, but it would be useful to have at least one, because they are going to go past 2030, aren't they?
Yeah, I think with houses, as I said before, it's easier to do because you can actually just plug it into your garage.
Okay.
Wayne?
First question is, on this plan, where are these ancient monumental stables? Are there?
Is this the plan in front of me? So it's top right.
Don't put that on the big
Sorry. So the way that this plan is laid out, north is actually that way. But they are, so top right on the plan.
And who will use them? Or are they just there as a monument?
So they have been so they have been restored to date by Crest Nicholson, who are the owners of the site. And eventually, when that linear park comes forward, which will be is connected to the district centre, there will be a community use within it. What that is, we don't know yet, because there's a big process of consultation to take place first.
You're going to be able to use it for very much, aren't you? Next question is, could you just go back to the designs?
Yeah.
I know that I'm not here to change design, but when you look at that, you think this is what you expect of Millgate. Then can we move on? And then you look at that, and you look at those first two, and you look at the roofs, and you think they just look out of place. The roofs look disproportionate to the house, and it just, I know I can't change the design, but it's not what I expect of Millgate. It just looks awful. But that's just my personal view.
Just for some clarity on this slide, I should have laid out, apologies. The top section is the original application, and in the bottom section is the revised application of the same units. So comments were received from the parishes, particularly regarding the two units on the left, and through the process working with the parishes, I think we got much more successful street frontage.
Well, you say that, but it's a flat roof, which is, flat roofs went out years ago, and I would have kept the hip. Well, you've got a flat roof coming out, the second one along the bottom. That's a flat. Sorry?
Angled backwards.
Yeah, it's a ridge line. That's the ridge line. So
it's
it's
all
all
window.
The second one along.
Yeah.
That's the ridge.
The dormer window.
The ridge comes sideways.
The gable.
No, you should, the second one along. Yeah, what's the top of that?
That's a ridge.
Yeah, I know that. At top of the window, that's a flat roof coming out of the roof.
It's a flat roof.
Exactly. You could have just put a nice pitch in there and taken away those hips, because those hips are just put in there and they don't sit that situation. But anyway, that's just my personal view. Because when you see Millgate homes around the area, they do build nice houses. So they will complement those. Sorry? No, but they do. They do. But anyway.
Any other questions? No? All done on this application? Okay. Set out then on page 116 to approve it with the conditions set out. There's only the two changes in the members' update. So all those in favour of passing this application, please show. Okay. Okay. So the application is passed. Thank you very much, members. Okay, come to the penultimate item on the agenda tonight, agenda item 52 on page 143. It's the land off Blagrove Lane, Wokingham. It's an application with a variation of conditions 1 and conditions 2, and it's before the committee as it's been listed by Councillor Powell. I shall hand over to Laura Powell, who is case officer.
Thank you, Chairman. The site at present is being used for the stationing of caravans for human habitation and is occupied by 3 travel families, including a number of children. There is extensive planning history to the site, and 2 of the previous appeal decisions have been quashed in the High Court and redetermined. The most recent appeal was allowed for a temporary period of 2 years, and the planning inspector found that although there be substantial harm to the character and appearance of the surrounding area if permanent planning permission were to be granted, he gave weight to the considerable educational and medical needs of those at the sites. So the appeal was allowed, subject to conditions, and I've summarised the conditions here that were on the appeal decision. It was allowed, subject to the conditions, that Mr Richard Coyle and dependents and Miss Letty Morn and dependents only resided at the site. A condition was also imposed that the site contained no more than 2 gypsy pitches, each pitch to contain no more than 2 caravans per pitch. Condition 3 also restricted commercial activities in the parking and storage of large vehicles in the site. However, the inspector made an error in drafting these conditions. In fact, Mr Richard Coyle did not reside at the site, and the submissions made at the appeal hearing were clear that 3 families were residing on the site, and therefore 3 pitches were required. This error was brought to the attention of the Planning Inspectorate, who applied the following. This is an extract from the Quality Assurance Team of PINS, and they stated, having reviewed the evidence, we accept that there are errors in the conditions 1 and 2 of this decision, and the current decision is flawed. The advice from PINS was to submit a Section 73 application to the local planning authority to correct the conditions, and that's the application that's before you tonight. Section 73 does not allow complete reconsideration of the application, and this application is made purely to correct the errors in the Planning Inspectorate's decision. So I've summarised here how the condition 1 should be amended, and that's to refer to the 3 families that are currently residing on the site. Going back over the written submissions made in the appeal hearing, it was clear that these residents were on the site and that there were 3 families and a need for 3 pitches. Also, after discussion with council officers present at both of the previous hearings, there were 2 hearings where it was quite clear that there were 3 families and that these were the residents at that time, including myself. I was present at one of those hearings. We're satisfied that these residents are those on the site, and it was a pure error by the Planning Inspectorate. Nothing proposed would change the temporary permission that was proposed by the inspector for 2 years, so the condition would still refer to 2 years from the date of that appeal decision, so taking it up to 2020. Likewise, given that there's 3 families residing on the site, there should be no more than 3 gypsy pitches, and on each pitches, no more than 2 caravans, as defined by the Caravan Sites Act. At the most recent site visit in connection with this planning application, there were 3 pitches on the site. You can see 3 of them here, 1 in the centre, and there's 2 caravans there. 1 to the left, there's a mobile home and 1 caravan, and then 1 to the right, 1 mobile home and 1 caravan. So the recommendation is to approve this application. It's made to correct a drafting error made by the Planning Inspectorate. The documentation submitted with the appeal, the information provided at the hearing was clear in terms of the names of the site occupants and clearly indicated 3 families on the site and a requirement for 3 pitches. To approve the application would not extend the temporary permission beyond the 2 years, and the application is therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. This is not sort of our normal application that we have to the planning committee. I've just asked our legal representative to say a few words, please.
Chair, thank you. Yes, as you've explained, it's quite an unusual situation. As explained by the case officer, it's an application under Section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. These types of applications cannot, by law, allow a complete reconsideration of the original planning permission. The only material issues which are relevant are those relevant to the condition that requires changing, As we've heard, the material issues are that there were two unfortunate mistakes in the planning appeal decision. The first mistake was the name of the occupants. The second mistake was the number of the pitches. I hope that clarifies the situation, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, I'll go to the board member first, which is Chris Claring, and then I'll go to Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, this application was originally refused by the planning committee and succeeded at appeal, but as has been very clearly explained, that's not why we're here. I think it's really a matter of natural justice that we should take this opportunity to make an amendment to the conditions to implement what the inspector really meant to do if he hadn't made a mistake. So I think it's quite straightforward. That's the right thing for us to do. If we were to decide not to do that, then I'm sure an appeal would succeed anyway. So I recommend approval.
Wayne?
You obviously didn't list this, Chris. So why did Councillor Power list it?
I'm just saying, she's not here to ask the question, so you can only read what's in the report.
I mean, I have my own views on the inspectorate because they're allowed to make very personal considerations on applications, and we've had two in the borough recently that we're challenging at great expense to residents. They can make a fundamental flaw that it's corrected, or that it's actually corrected on page 155, saying that the decision is flawed. I agree, there's not much we can do about it. It's very disappointing that they're supposed to be a law of others and they can get so many things wrong. But we've got to go with it.
Right. Malcolm?
Just a question of some clarity, really. It says that there were 2 years, which goes up to whatever, February 2020. But he also says that they could restore the whole thing back to its original state, presumably at a country field or something. That presumably means they don't actually physically stay on it till February 2020. They have to move off earlier, otherwise they couldn't lock down all the stuff and change it all back to the country. So does it mean that they can stay until that day and the reversion to the countryside is done after they've gone? Just wondered how that would work.
Should we respond to that?
So they would need to comply with all elements of that condition by that date, the way that it's worded. Sometimes you'd see conditions where we'd ask for a scheme for approval, but this condition of the inspectorate doesn't ask for that. They're just asking for it to cease to be occupied and then remove all the structures and the works, and that would need to take place by the 15th of January 2020.
That probably means they moved just before, otherwise they couldn't do it by the date. Okay, thank you.
Mark, if you want to just hit the button. Any other members wishing to come?
Thanks. Yeah, I think judging with the history of this, and it's been to the High Court and back, and this was an appeal which we lost anyway, despite the fact it being slightly incorrect, obviously. If we to refuse it, really, we're just delaying the inevitable and paying for the privilege, really. But having said that, there's a question I would like to ask. It's related to what's been said inside it, was the appeal judgment. The reason this has been allowed, effectively, is that there aren't enough sites in the borough, although it does seem to say there are enough sites in the borough as well. And it is to, the lack of alternative sites, and it's also to allow alternative sites to become available as anticipated through the council's assessments. So I'm assuming that in this, we believe that by 2020, when this comes to an end, that there will be available sites for these to move to. I guess the question is that true?
Yeah, so the council has to, same as housing land supply, we have to provide sites in the future. So as part of our continuing process and looking at sites, that's one of the things we do. So I suspect that, the current local plan is going through the system at the moment. To be honest, I don't know what our current situation is in terms of sites, but I think where we need to be. But the idea is in 2 years' time there would be sites available where they can move to. I mean, there's obviously special circumstances where they were given this site in the first place.
Current assessment is we've got just over 11 years.
Thank you for that extra information. Right, are we all done? Okay, right, we set out then on page 144, the recommendation is to grant the Plan Commission subject to amending conditions 1 and 2. All those in favour, please show, and that's unanimous, so that's passed. Thank you very much. We come to the last application of the evening then, which is agenda item 53 on page 167. It's 8 Medway Close. It's a household application for a single-storey front extension, first floor front and side extensions, conversion of the existing garage and internal alterations. It's before the committee tonight as it's been listed by Councillor Chris Baring. And go then to Case Officer Stephen Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is application 182236, which does consist of front, side and rear extensions to an existing detached dwelling in Medway Close. The garage will also be converted to accommodation. It's being presented to the committee because it's been listed by Councillor Barry in the event of approval, who has raised concerns regarding the impact of the proposal on the amenity of the neighbour at number 9 Medway Close. This is the site location plan which demonstrates that the existing property sits at the end of Medway Close, off of a shared driveway area but facing the road proper. So this is Medway Close down here. The block plan demonstrates the location of the proposed extensions in relation to neighbouring properties. The existing elevations, so you've got the front elevation on the top left, the rear elevation on the bottom left, and then the two side elevations on the right. And these are the proposed elevations. So again, you've got the front elevation on the top left, rear on the bottom left, and then the side elevations on the right. These are the existing floor plans, with the front of the property being at the bottom of the drawings. And then these are the proposed. So you've got the rear extension, single-storey rear extension at the back, and then the side extension here. This is the property from the front. So on the top left image, it's the house on the left with number 9 Medway Close on the right, and on the bottom right-hand image, that is number 9 Medway Close in the middle, with number 8 on the left. And these are some images of Medway Close. So on the top image, you've got number 8 in the rear ground, and then in the bottom image, there's some of the neighbouring properties looking up towards Medway Close. These are images of the rear of the dwelling. So at the top, that's a straight-on picture of the rear of number 8, and on the bottom, that shows a relationship between number 8 and number 9. Objections have been received from the neighbour regarding the impact of the proposal on the character of the area, their amenity, and trees along the boundary of the two gardens. Additionally, objection is raised regarding a perceived potential lack of sufficient amenity space and the fact that the proposal would overhang the boundary. As has been outlined in paragraph 6 of the report, it's not considered that the proposals would lead to harm to the character of the area. Paragraphs 8 to 14 address the potential impact on the neighbour amenity, including a detailed discussion regarding loss of light, overbearing and overlooking issues due to the proximity of the side and rear extensions to neighbouring side-facing windows. No reason for refusal on this application is substantiated due to impact on neighbour immunity, subject to conditions number 4 and 5, which would prevent overlooking. The potential impact on the trees boundary of the property is addressed in paragraph 16, and no harm to the character of the area is found. Neither is harm found regarding community space, which is discussed in paragraph 17. Further to the neighbouring objections and the listing of this application, this picture shows the relationship between the application property and number 9. The application property is on the right and the neighbour is to the left. These are the side, to the rear, on the side, approximately there. They are the side-facing bathroom and ensuite windows at the neighbouring property. The first floor side extension would be to the right of those above the single-storey side section, and the rear extension would come off the rear wall adjacent to the boundary. Here's another picture of the relationship between the two properties. The first floor side extension would be set a metre from the boundary on above the single-storey side addition to the right, and the neighbouring windows are shown there to the left. The only window to a habitable room is the one closest to us, so in the foreground, on the ground floor of the neighbouring property. This image here demonstrates, is taken from the rear of number 9, so the neighbouring property, looking towards where the first floor extension would be above the single-storey side section of number 8. This shows the relationship between the conservatory and the neighbour, and the two internal archways within the conservatory, which allow additional light into the room inside number 8. Inside number 9, sorry. To conclude, this development would result in acceptable impacts on the character of the area, neighbouring amenities, highway safety, the immunity of future occupiers, protected species or trees, and it's recommended that it's approved subject to the conditions in the risk report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, registered to speak, we have Richard and Jamie Kind. I don't know if you're both speaking, sharing the 3 minutes, or
just myself.
Okay,
Richard.
Right, Richard, welcome.
I have some slides prepared. Is it possible?
Did you not want to be talking?
Thank you.
So thank you, Angus, for mentioning that. Thank you.
Dear members of the committee, the application did not include contextual elevation or plans. Therefore, image 1 on the screen shows the existing contextual elevation. With reference to the borough's design guide, I note the following. Alterations and extensions should respond positively to their context, maintaining or enhancing the street scene and local character. Key considerations include consistent gaps, and alterations or extensions that are visible from the street should not unbalance the frontage. If you can move to image 2, please. This identifies the proposal with the first floor gable extension to the front and the 2-storey side extension. The current first floor design drastically alters the host dwelling's sense of proportion, its scale and massing in context of the street scene and the current rhythm of the immediate cul-de-sac. The form of the applicant's existing dwelling would no longer be readable with the current proposal's dominance over the existing house. Image 3, please. This shows the front boundary treatment to the immediate properties within the cul-de-sac, and that to be lost at number 8. The guidance notes, boundary treatments should be designed to contribute positively to the quality and character of the public ground. Where parking is proposed to the front of buildings, then space will be required for landscaping to soften the view. The additional parking space can only be achieved with a complete removal of all soft landscaping, an indication that this is overdevelopment. With reference to sunlight and daylight, the guidance states, dwellings must be designed to provide appropriate levels of daylight and sunlight to new and existing properties. Image 4, please. This is the current situation. The BRE states the quantity and quality of daylight inside a room would be impaired if obstructing buildings are large in relation to their distance away, and living rooms and kitchens need more daylight. In designing an extension to a building, it is important to safeguard the daylight in nearby buildings. The guidance recommends that if an angle greater than 25 degrees is reached, a more detailed check is needed to find the loss of skylight to the existing building. Image 5, please. This is the proposed impact. The existing house sits at 60 degrees, significantly over the 25 degrees noted. The proposal, at 75 degrees, will remove 50% of the remaining sky aspect, impacting our amenity. The proposal is to the south and southwest of our house, with maximum impact upon the amenity of our home and garden. The guide goes on to state, side extensions should not generally project forward of the building line on the street frontage, and front extensions should generally be no more than 1 story in height and should not project significantly forward of the building line. The proposal does on all counts. Alterations or extensions should be clearly subservient to the form and scale of the original building. The guidance notes there are exceptions. However, the proposal is significantly dominant to the host dwelling. The side wall of extensions must not contain windows, especially at first floor level. 2 are proposed. Finally, I'm not aware of any first floor extensions built within the estate with a relationship to the neighbouring property, such as this. Thank you for your time.
Well timed then. And then we have Mr. Hereafter, the applicant, come forward. Welcome.
Hello everyone, members of the council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and to committee members. My name is Mr. Hira. I live with my wife and 3 children at 8 Medway Close. When we moved in about 11 years ago, just my wife and I with a 9-month-old baby, our house at that time was great for us, perfect dwelling, great neighbourhood, there's sufficient space. As our family has grown, there's 5 of us now, 3 children, 3 little girls. As they're growing up, I'm finding that we need more and more space to live. And we've kind of outgrown the current space that we have. The house as it stands is not really suitable for the expanding family that we've got, and what we're looking for is just to improve the living space that we have within the area that we live, and at the same time to modernise the property that we have. We love living in Wokingham. It's a fantastic place to live, specifically Medway Close. We have a great relationship with all of our neighbours there. It's got a great community feel, great schools, our kids go to schools there and have done and continue to do so. We feel very safe there. It's a great place for us to live and wouldn't like to start again somewhere else, but don't feel that the current dwelling suits what we can manage with at the moment. I believe we've kept the application in line with the current feel of the close. I think the report that's sort of been prepared by Mr. Bludger addresses a lot of the points that have been raised by my neighbour, which is why I haven't got a detailed response on each of those. But I'd like to think that we have kept it in line with the current feel and rhythm of the close. Some of that I believe is very impossible to judge exactly what would constitute something that doesn't fit in with that rhythm and feel of the neighbourhood, and some of those points raised by my neighbour. In summary, I'm just looking to provide a more suitable home for the growing family, in a great environment, a great place that we like to live. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Before I come to the board member, I just picked up sort of 4 points from the first presentation, which I'd like the officer to respond to first of all. And that's, firstly, was the application making it unbalanced on the street scene because it's so, it's been suggested that it's large. The reducing of the car parking at the front, there's no soft landscaping, so to accommodate it. If you could comment on the daylight loss, and finally the side windows on the first floor. You could comment on those please, and I'll come to the board member.
Yeah, so in terms of, in terms of the character of the area, I'll go back to the images of the street. So Medway Close itself has houses of mixed design and style, but as you can see, front vehicle features are a common feature in the street. This application would therefore be in keeping with this. and in terms of the mixed character of the area. A metres gap has also been retained to the boundary for the first floor side extension, which is required by the Borough Design Guide to mitigate against harmful terracing. And it also, the proposal doesn't protrude forward of the neighbouring property, and it doesn't protrude forward of the existing property. As you can see, it has an existing first floor, ground floor protruding section anyway, so it wouldn't be harmful to the character of the area. In terms of the car parking, let's see, one second. The new car parking space is proposed in that triangle of grass in front of number 8. While the soft landscaping to the front of the property would be lost, it's considered a minimal change to the character of the area, and it could be carried out under permitted development in any case. In terms of the daylight and sunlight, this is the relationship between the two properties. All of the windows on the side of the property do not serve habitable rooms, apart from the ground floor window closest to us. Therefore, any impact to those windows wouldn't substantiate a reason to refuse the application. In terms of the impact on the window closest to us, it's already heavily impacted by the neighbouring property, which breaches the 25-degree line, and therefore any impact over and above this in terms of loss of light would be minimal. In any case, in the current situation, it is not the only source of light, natural light to the room, which is also provided through those two archways through the conservatory at present. It's probably worth noting the neighbour does have permission to build a single-storey rear extension, which would result, if implemented, in the closure of one of those archways, but the enlargement of the other archway. If that was to be carried out, that would be in full knowledge of the approval, if approved, of this application, and the window would still not be the only source of light to the room inside the property, which would still get light through the remaining archway. And in terms of the side-facing windows, the only potential impact of the first floor proposed first floor side-facing windows, which would look towards number 9, would be from ensuite windows, and therefore conditions have been recommended to require them to be obscure glazed and to prevent any additional windows in the first floor. However, in any case, as the upstairs windows don't serve habitable rooms, the only planning concern would be with the downstairs side facing habitable room window.
Okay. I'll come to the board member then, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I congratulate Mr. Kind on the great deal of work he's put into this and raising some important issues. I think there is an impact on number 9, but I think my general feeling at the moment is that there are fairly minimal impact. So my present position is I am inclined to support the application, but I'm interested to hear what other members have to say.
I'm looking at Malcolm.
Which I quite understand what people want to extend their houses, no problem at all with that. And I don't mind different types of houses and bits added to it, different shapes, because I've welcome that. Just the feeling I've got here is just a bit too close. So that doesn't look like a metre. I'm told it is, but it looks fairly small. If you need to do any work to those windows or anywhere down the house, I don't know how a workman would be able to do it, to be honest. It's narrow corridor. So it's a bit too close. I think you also said that existing measurement exceeds the 25-degree thing anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, if it already existed, why would you want to make it worse?
Well, there's two issues to address. Because there's already a loss of light, the impact would be less noticeable than if there was not already a loss of light. And secondly, this window is not the only window source of light, natural light to that room, in any case.
If we just stick on this drawing, is that as built? So that was built by the developer like that? Okay. That's interesting, isn't it? Where is the arch?
So that previous image was taken from standing just in front of that shrub on the right, looking down between the two houses. So the arches are, I don't know if you can see from there, inside the conservatory. Two arches.
Yes. Yeah, I can see some, there.
Here. Two arches.
Right. It's quite confusing looking at that. It almost looks like that conservatory has been built on an angle, or has it? It does. It kind of, it does this.
I think it's the angle, I think it's the
picture.
photograph angle actually more than anything.
I think it's the angle of the photograph. In the bottom corner there, you can see this is a conservatory.
Yes.
But I don't know if Wayne's finished yet.
I would have liked us to have gone on a site visit here, because this to me, I mean, I am amazed that they built, considering this is, I imagine this is part of Woos Hill Estate, is it? Is this in Woos Hill?
Yes.
Considering, this was i.e. a new area, you would have thought that they would have built it with the necessary separation gaps, and not in a situation where you're going to have a party wall act every time you need to do some work on you're going to have to imply the party wall act if you're going to want to do some wall there, which to me, in new developments, we should be doing that, and we should have been doing that when this was built. So it's very difficult sitting here, because you've showed us lots of pictures, very difficult for me to get a really good idea. On paper it looks overbearing, but as I said, I would have really liked us to have gone on a site visit to just look at the impact of this.
Malcolm?
Yes, in the middle of your explanation, did you say something would have been permitted by permitted development anyway? But that would have been single story anyway, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be anything higher. And
with regards to that, I was referring to the parking space to the front, but I have checked, and the only part of this development that would be permitted development, other than the hard standing for the parking space, would be the single-storey rear extension.
I'll go to Carl next and then come back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I kind of agree with Wayne here. I mean, I've written on the bottom of my notes here, which I make, don't feel I have enough information to judge this application. That's before we had the photographs and so on, which have been a help. But yeah, it seemed to be, there wasn't really much, quite a small diagram really to kind of work out what's going on. One of the things that more confusion for me was on page 172, it refers to a setback of 1 metre from the side boundary. And that's the subservience. So I'm not sure that there's setback 1 metre from the boundary, maybe 1 metre between them. And then it refers later on in page 174 as the proposal will be hard up against the boundary. And then on page 175 it refers to the single-storey rear extension appears to overhang the neighbour's boundary. It refers to that as a civil matter. I'll take that on board. But I find it very difficult to be sat here trying to decide something when bits of it are actually overhanging and going into somebody else's property. That seems quite difficult to get my head around.
So they are, in answer to that, they're different parts of the development. The first floor side extension is 1 metre from the boundary, and the single-storey rear extension, I've referred to it as hard up or overhanging. It does overhang the neighbour's boundary, by virtue of the fact that the existing house overhangs the boundary, but the first floor side extension which is this bit here, is set away from the boundary. The single-story rear extension is up against or overhanging the boundary.
So, does that mean that one of the two houses, sorry, does that mean one of the two houses is actually built up to and on the boundary, and the 1 metre gap between the house is off the adjacent one? Otherwise, if you've got a 1 metre gap, is the actual boundary down the middle of that?
Yeah, the borough design guides suggest that the top terracing, the first floor in particular, can't link. So you do have a lot of cases where the ground floor is actually attached to each other, or there's a minimal gap between them. But that the borough design, as I say, is intended to stop that terracing effect of dwellings. It's probably more apparent on an estate that's all the same. These are a bit different, so the houses are different, so it's a little bit different view of it. But yeah, it is right on this one. It's right up to the boundary in the ground floor.
I would tend to bring it with Wayne. I'd like to see it personally with a site visit, because it's a bit difficult with some of those photos to get exceptional.
Okay, Wayne, you are ready to come back.
Yeah, I think you mentioned another thing, Stephen, which I think is also important. The existing permission that exists for number 9. That's why I would recommend us going on the site visit, so we can see the impact of what would happen if that were to be built, and then we take the whole thing in the round, so we can see exactly the situation. Because it is, I haven't got that here. I know you've mentioned it, which is quite right, but I would have liked to see it visually, so we can see the impact of that. So I would be quite happy to propose a site visit.
I think we just need to be very careful, site visit I understand, I think we very need to be careful on the fact that there's an existing consent that hasn't been implemented, because if it's not there, it's very hard to make a judgment because it may never be built. It's obviously a consideration for you, but it's got consent, but it may never be built. So it's like a side window, where they say they're going to put a side window in, but they may never do. So it's very hard. As a planning authority, you can't consider something that has consent that hasn't been built.
They might build this. They might build this.
Yeah, of course.
I think legal wanted
one and a half doesn't go.
Legal wanted to.
Just say as an officer, do you?
Right.
Chair, sorry, just to back the Director of Planning's view there is, I think we have to judge it on the facts as they are now, not based on speculation what might happen in the future. So if there is a decision where it's taken tonight or at some future point, I think that's the advice that I'll give to the panel.
Before we come back to deciding on site visit, are there any more questions? Right. Wayne, you proposed a site visit, so I'd like to hear clearly why you want to have a site visit.
Well, I think there's several things. I think the impact on the street scene, the overpowering nature of this extension on the neighbouring extension, and then I would actually like to see on site. It's very difficult, definitely too difficult with those plans that we've got in here. But I appreciate that yours are better, but I would like to see it go on site just to see the impact of all those things I've just mentioned.
Would anybody else like to add anything else to that before I ask for a seconder? So we say, Chris, you're the board member, was there anything else you particularly wanted to add to the reasons?
I'd be quite happy to go on a site visit. I think that would be help.
Okay. I'm just going to ask for advice, those reasons are...
Yep, they're legitimate reasons to do it, yep.
Okay. I know you're anxious to second it now, but I'm going to look to the ward member if he would like to... Okay. Okay, so we can say it's been seconded by Malcolm then. So all those in favour of a site visit, please show. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against them, and 2 abstentions. So we could be going on a site visit. And that ends the applications tonight then, so thank you very much.